Ah,
Ye- Yeah. So I had to bust this one out. What first and foremost, welcome to another episode of the Starchildjr Stuffs and Things podcast. So DJ Lance Reynolds is in the house with me today. Y'all at DJ Lance Reynolds, and he brought me the cutout of my guest today's mask on the Masked Singer, Mr. Paul Shaffer. How you do today, sir? He's
I'm doing okay. It's a lot of fun to be here with you, and that you open up with that is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I
Uh,
figured you would get a kick out of that.
I lasted for about 2 seconds on that show,
That's
as
okay.
you're,
That's okay.
but I
You
was
know,
there though.
yeah, I'm about to say you came further than a lot. So, you know what I'm saying? There you
And
go.
my look, being with you and seeing that look again, I would be very comfortable on a Parliament-Funkadelic P-Funk stage.
Oh,
I think with that
I
with that
already
look,
know. I already know. I already know. We're gonna get you in
yes.
here live one day, man. See, you talking about the cutout right there, huh? You gotta be in
That's right. Well, I gotta come like that, next time I come.
next time, man. Next
Yeah.
time. When we after COVID. After COVID.
All right, you got it.
All right. So this is what I want to do first and foremost. I want to start off. I want to start right at the beginning, man, because first, like you've done some of the coolest gigs in your career, bro. You know what I mean? For somebody like me who sat back and watched some of these things that you've done, and kudos to you. And I want to start off with some of the. Let's start off with your Canadian days, man. You rubbed shoulders with some of the best comedians the game has ever seen, man. Let's talk
It
about that.
all happened in 1972 in Toronto. I was just out of school. I went to college there. I was just getting into, trying out music and seeing if there was a possibility of being able to make a living. And then a show, it was an off Broadway show from the early 70s called Godspell.
Godspell.
It was about Jesus, but as clowns. Jesus and his disciples doing the parables dressed as clowns with nice music. And it came to town, Toronto, to do a Canadian company. It was a hit off Broadway in New York. They had a lot of companies going. They had auditions and all the talented kids, I guess, in their early 20s who were in Toronto, Canada, came to audition. And
Gilda
I came to,
Radner,
yes, Gilda Radner, who was
Martin
not Canadian, but
Short.
Gilda was from Detroit, but was living in Toronto. Martin Short, Eugene Levy,
Yeah, man.
Victor Garber,
Some of the
uh,
kings of the 80s comedy, man.
yes, and Dave Thomas, who was with them all on when they became SCTV. So funny, really a big competitor to Saturday Night Live coming
Yeah.
out of Canada.
Yeah.
So I had come to this audition with a friend to accompany her while she sang a song auditioning for Godspell, and I got hired to be the MD and do the band. And I had never done anything like this before, but before I knew it, at 22, I was conducting this show up in Canada with all these talented kids. Gilda, Andrea Martin, maybe the funniest of them all. We left her out.
Okay.
All these people in Canada at the time, and we had the time of our lives doing that show together and laughing all the time, making ourselves laugh all the
I could
time and each
imagine.
other.
I could imagine, man. I could imagine. And then you ended up at Saturday Night Live. Now, first and foremost, before you get into that, I can imagine, man, those had to be some of the best laughs that you ever had in your life being on that set, bro.
Oh, absolutely. And although we didn't truly realize it at the time because we were just starting out and they were inventing this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
bringing the Second City style of improv comedy to the screen, to the small screen, and adding contemporary music to that. And through a couple of twists and turns, I got hired to be in the house band, and then because I knew a lot of the performers, a lot of them were from that very Godspell company up in
Right.
Toronto, Gilda, for
Right.
instance. Dan Aykroyd was not in it, but hung with us up in Canada. Belushi was one of the first people that I met when I came to New York through Brian Doyle Murray, who was Billy Murray's older brother. Anyway, all these connections were such that I got hired to be the pianist, but also started writing special musical material, we would call it, funny lyrics to songs and things, or original funny songs for the cast. And I knew them all already, so I was sort of a natural fit.
Right on, right on. So and like I said, some people don't even understand the healing power of laughter, man. So you have to be like the healthiest cat right now, because I say you've hung around some truly hilarious cats, man. Like I can remember just sitting home watching all of those movies. Like I think I was maybe I might have just been born when like when like Animal House and stuff like that was coming out. And but I can remember as a kid seeing those movies and being tickled to death by them before I even understood really the content that was in them. And like they ended up just being like classics that you just watched and watched over and over. And as I kept on watching them, they just got funnier as you started to understand the content in them.
I understand that. I'm hip to
Yeah,
that.
those cats
And
were
I just think
legendary,
of
man.
Belushi, I guess, for a child. Belushi would have been a great character, sort
Yeah,
of a clown-like character anyway,
yeah, he
to
was
relate to. And you didn't
hilarious.
necessarily have to understand what was going on. He was so appealing on screen.
Uh-huh.
Man, it reminds me, though, of, and then he hired me to put together his band for him and Aykroyd when they did the Blues
I was
Brothers.
Nice
And
segue. I
I
was just about to
was,
get to
but
that.
I just remember, that we had a little schedule. It was during the summer. I was going to spend a week with John and Danny, just sort of putting together the repertoire, seeing which blues tunes they knew, which ones they wanted to do. They were
Uh-huh.
comics who were about to do a reverent tribute to blues and R&B with
Right.
what turned out to be the ultimate, R&B review
Right.
that we put together with legit musicians, from that scene. Kind of magical. But that week I was supposed to spend picking out the tunes. That was the week that Animal House came out. Well,
Okay.
and that was the week that Belushi became a star. So forget that week. We didn't really get it. He just did interviews and accepted kudos, and we
Yeah,
never really got
he's like, I gotta put that on hold for a second, guys.
for a second. And what did I know? I didn't know what was going to happen, but that one all worked out in the
Yeah,
end, for
yeah, because
sure.
when he
Yeah.
came back to do the Blues Brothers, it was like icing on the cake, I bet, man. That's money.
Well, they were so hot off SNL, John and Danny, that everybody wanted to play for them.
I
We got,
imagine.
call. They could have had anybody in that band, and we were able to select guys that were really like Matt Guitar Murphy,
Uh-huh.
who had been in the Chicago blues scene, in the '60s, and played for Junior, with Junior Wells and all of these great innovators. And then
Right,
you had
right.
Steve Cropper, on the other guitar from Memphis, who had been in Booker T and the MGs and played on all that Otis Redding and Stax, the original things, and including that Blues Brothers first single, which was Soul Man, which, Cropper had cut on the original when they said, "Play it, Steve." And Belushi used
Uh-huh.
to love to say, "Play it, Steve," because it was the actual Steve Cropper who had played that.
So
It
dope,
was
man.
fun, yeah. And I don't know how I got there. It was almost like Zelig, from that
The
Woody
u-
Allen
the
movie.
universe, man.
One thing came, led to another, and I was really just so blessed. And I don't, at the time you're working so hard, you don't realize almost how much fun that it was. But we all have a little time now to look back,
Yeah,
and
right.
I've been, thinking, so wow, that was amazing. That was amazing too. So I don't take these blessings for granted.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't, man. After you get to reflect on them, how could you? You know, and
Yeah,
so in the midst of all of that, what is it, around 82 that you start doing the Letterman gig as well?
that's exactly right. It was '82. I don't remember when the month. Maybe it was the month of February or something. Can't remember now.
Okay.
But yes, I had. completed the first 5 years of Saturday Night Live. And I had started even to do some performing. And by the 5th season, I was what they called a featured player, meaning I was going to be in a certain number of sketches.
Okay.
As an actor, you know, I was having a lot of fun, just trying to get on camera more, you know.
All that charisma, how could you not get it on camera?
I don't know. You know what? Well, it's nice of you to say, but I'm a shy, you know, certainly coming from Northern Canada, very shy guy, you know,
But you're a natural
inward
entertainer.
and loving rock and roll and the stuff that I heard on the radio starting to waft up from, you know, from US and learning how to play by ear and stuff, but really, you know, quite introverted until I realized nobody is going to pay for this. You know, you got to kind of up your game. And so that's what I tried to do. And I must say, meeting those kids in that show Gospel in 1972 and seeing their style and just seeing Martin Short off camera, what he's like that all the time.
I can imagine.
You know, certainly always on, but not in a way that gets, you know, boring.
Right.
But I just said to myself, this guy is having more fun than I am. I want to be more like, you know, let me act more like him. And he was that influential to me.
All right. So Letterman now. First and foremost.
Oh yeah, I was saying that I was telling you that I had finished those first 5 years of Saturday Night Live, and I left with the whole original cast. You know, didn't seem to be right to continue with a whole new cast and stuff. Continued playing the piano in New York, doing dates. I got to be on a lot of records and commercials at that time as a piano player, which was really an ambition. And we all learned about studio work and stuff, and for musicians and how cool that would be. And I got to do a lot of that, which I'm so grateful for. And then got that call from Letterman's office. He's getting a show. He had one in the morning, a live show, very hip, a little too hip for that hour, but he's coming back with something so late it's going to be on even after The Tonight Show, which at that time starred the great Johnny Carson, who did it better than anybody else. You know, this is going to be on even later. And I'm saying, wow, this is like, you know, later to me was always hipper, you know, this is perfect. And I got to put together my own band, and it was just a 4-piece band, which was perfect for me because that's kind of what I knew how to do.
Okay.
And, you know, Letterman hired me. He and I hit it off. And I got 3 guys who were my favorite musicians really in town at the time for that first band, which was Will Lee, the great bassist who stayed with me all through the 33 years, was there till the very end. The late, great Hiram Bullock on guitar, who could play anything and was, to me, you know, like a Hendrix. And the great Steve Jordan, who had other places to go and has become, as you know, most respected of record producers, as well as a great drummer and musician.
Yes, he is.
So that was a hell of a quartet, you know.
So did you get the call personally from Letterman?
The original call came from someone in his management office.
Okay.
Dave would like you to come in and have a meeting about the show.
Okay.
So I said, sure, you know, and he told me later that he had seen some of the stuff I had done on Saturday Night Live back in that day. He mentioned when Billy Murray used to do his Lounge Lizard things, Nick Winters and stuff, and I would always be on piano in the background, and I would have helped put together some of these things, although the actual choices always came from Billy himself. But Letterman mentioned that, and he says he always had me in mind for the gig.
Okay.
But they kept saying, what would you do? What kind of band would you have? And I did have this idea, since it was only going to be 4, and I remembered my days back in Canada where they had live bands in all the bars. Often Oregon, I don't know why, but Toronto was this kind of super hip R&B town where they dug the Hammond B3 organ. I never understood why, but there were a lot of good organ players there, including in these bars. Even what they called topless bars at the time, live combos in these topless bars with organs and stuff. And there was, a scene there. And I said, maybe I'll have a band like that, based on the organ, which I love to play. And we're playing kind of instrumental versions of my favorite R&B things, which developed into just rock and roll in general, early rock and Motown and Stones and Beatles and everything that we all loved. And Letterman said, that sounds great. He says, because I've always thought of myself as the Wayne Cochran of comedy. And Wayne Cochran was a guy, a little known regional Miami performer whose act was he was the white James Brown. He had white cotton candy hair teased way up into a huge bouffant. And he basically did a, James Brown's act with a big horn section, and he even had Jaco Pastorius on bass way back then. Well, as I said, whoa, what a hip I said, I want to work for this guy.
Yeah, right.
When he said that, made me laugh. And, he was so nice to me and supportive all through the years that it really some kind of a working relationship is wonderful. And I'm still in touch with him.
Oh, I bet. You guys had a wonderful rapport. Did you like kind of discover that like early on too?
No, it really developed gradually.
Okay.
Letterman was the one host who didn't want anything that wasn't real. If you're just having a conversation, let it just be a conversation.
Right.
Don't be trying to read cue cards at the same time. That was his motto, unless it's an actual sketch where we're going to have lines written and doing a comedy. Otherwise, it was really very what you see is what you get. So there was no, now here's a spot. I never got a spot. There was no spot where I was going to converse with him. I just had to kind of grab it,
I dig it. It seemed
and
that
just
way.
Start talking, yeah. And the first time I started talking, my microphone wasn't even on. They weren't expecting it. They were had to straighten out a few things, make sure it was going to be on the next time. It was all so gradual. And then when I did finally speak, Letterman enjoyed it, and he was very encouraging. He said, "Yeah, do more of that. Funny, he gave me a lot of confidence."
That's what was appealing about his show, man. It always seemed just like so genuinely just, like fun and funny. And he's just such a funny, engaging kind of guy, man. And very insightful, he's like very cool, like I tell folks like, he seems like the type of dude that you could definitely sit down and smoke a joint with and have the best conversation with or something like that. He seems like a very down to earth kind of guy, man. And
he certainly can swing with anybody.
That's what
at any time.
That's like
a politician, man. A musician, whatever.
Yeah.
I must say that I happen to know that at one time he was he liked to drink.
Oh yeah.
He was a drinker, and he no longer takes anything. So just for the record.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, well, kind of guy that I could sit down and smoke a joint and have a good conversation
he would be absolutely fine with that.
Yeah, he's a cool dude, man. I could, you can just tell it. He just oozes it. So okay, so let's reverse a little bit. So first and foremost, kudos. You've hung out with the Saturday Night Live crew and worked with them. You work with David Letterman. You work with, you done so much cool stuff. I could do like 2 hours on you. I could probably do 3 on you after doing.
I had no idea that you were, you were so kind of scary actually. When you had kept up on, you were so knowledgeable about my little career.
Oh well, I have to keep up on
where you come from and stuff.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Coming from where I come from and where we about to go now, I have to stay studied up on you guys, man. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, of course, you
we'll
wouldn't be doing your homework if you hadn't.
That's right. That's right. So we'll go back to Toronto now. I will take it that it was in those days. You said about 72 is probably when you started to discover some Funkadelic around there in the area.
I think even more than that, even earlier than that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure of the exact dates. I was in Toronto going to college, I think from 69, and I graduated from this college in 71.
Okay.
So I was always going out. I was finally in a real city where they had real international acts that I could see. Start to see some real musical acts live.
Uh-huh.
Um, when I got there, so I was a new club called the Rock Pile had just opened up, and I got to see all these people like Blood, Sweat, and Tears. That was the era.
Uh-huh.
You made me so very happy. And then on Young Street, the main drag of the town, there was a bar called the Cock Door.
Okay.
I think, topless, if I remember correctly, but upstairs, a teen lounge
Uh-huh.
where they had local bands primarily, all R&B bands. Again, don't know why. Maybe there was some connection with Detroit, but maybe it's because we saw a lot of the what they tell me was called the Chitlin Circuit. We were sort of the northern end of it.
Uh-huh.
Acts like Bo Diddley, Harold Melvin, and the Blue Notes, I remember playing this Cock Door downstairs, but upstairs a teen lounge
Uh-huh.
called the Hawk's Nest, where they didn't serve alcohol, but you saw these great local R&B bands like John and Lee and the Checkmates, who certainly got a lot of their act from Sam and Dave,
Okay.
and George Oliver and the Mandela, a guy doing James Brown a white Canadian guy doing James Brown and doing not a bad job. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, a group came on the scene, and they were called the Parliaments, and we had heard their record, I Want to Testify.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in Toronto. We were aware that they were kind of from the US. We don't know why they were there. They were all black guys. And they were right in a transition because at this other club, the Rock Pile, we were seeing Iron Butterfly and things were very psychedelic over there.
Uh-huh.
Now, here was this band, the Parliaments, and a new concept was developing. They played the Teen Club, and they had a background band called the Funkadelics. And this was going to be a sort of two aspects of the same conglomerate. The
Uh-huh.
Funkadelics were going to be the instrumentalists,
Uh-huh.
and the background vocalists, no, excuse me, the vocalists were going to be the frontmen, two different entities. And all of this I would read in the paper. There was a promoter up there who was well known to me. His name was Ron Scribner. I
Uh-huh.
understand he became their manager,
Yes,
but
he did.
I knew him just as the guy who booked the Hawk's Nest and booked the different acts, but did a lot of press on them. And we learned from reading the local press all about how there were these two groups, the Parliaments and the Funkadelics. And I'm telling you, this night, when I'll never forget the first night I saw them, because the Funkadelics came on first,
Uh-huh.
dressed in ways that I had never seen. We hadn't seen this in Canada yet. We started to see it maybe over at the Rock Pile, when an LA group like from San Francisco came to town.
Was George
But
naked
here,
with the sheet yet?
here were they? Sorry,
Was George naked with just the sheet on?
with the sheet.
Yeah, would
You
that be
know,
that would
well, yes, yeah, and he, he had chance. Well, before he even came on, the Funkadelics jammed for a good 20 minutes, half hour. you
uh-huh.
know, Funk. And then you look to the side, and there's three guys coming, and yes, one of them had just a sheet, but they were coming a micro step at a time onto the stage. So as the Funkadelics jammed, this groove got fiercer and fiercer. Here come these three guys, and they take a full 15 minutes to get on stage because they're taking one little step at a time. But when they get on, they're nasty.
Uh-huh.
And they did a chant that I never forgot. I got a thing, you got a thing,
Yeah.
everybody
Everybody's got a
got a
thing.
thing. Yeah. When we get together, do our
Doing our
thing,
thing in order
order
to
to
help
help
each
each
other.
other. Yeah. We're in sync over the order to help one another was the last
In
line, I think.
order to
So
help your brother.
yes. So I never, I never forgot that since then.
Yeah.
Um, and it was, and you're saying, what's he got under that sheet? But you're also saying, man, this music, incredible, you know. And then after that, of course, they started to hit in the U.S. And I remember very clearly, well, doing the Blues Brothers. Well, when would that have been? Blues Brothers 7, when we were on tour, that was 1980. So before that, I was in LA. You know, I did a weird situation comedy in 1977, kind of a thing about a band, you know, a sitcom about a band. And we played just 5 shows in the summer of 77, but we were on Casablanca Records.
Okay.
Which was happening right at that time, with Neil Bogart signed us. And of course, our label mates technically were something which is now singular. It wasn't the Parliaments anymore. It was now Parliament-Funkadelic. Yeah, Parliament and Funkadelic and Bootsy's Rubber Band and all that stuff was happening in Los Angeles strong, man. And I was, you know, driving down that strip in my rented convertible, you know, and just hearing Flashlight come on. I'll never forget it. And then realizing that these guys this was the same kind of guys, I think, that were in Toronto, you know, just coincidence that I happened to see them up there. And I saw them a couple of times. And then here they were hitting big in LA. And, you know, and of course we learned about the mothership and everything. I could go on and on. What do you have to cut for a commercial?
Oh no, you go right on ahead.
I'm starting to get excited about my own personal. You know, everybody I guess has their personal story about how they become a Funketeer, if I may.
I was gonna say, man, everyone ends up with that gleam in their eye when they talk about this, man.
And they start to talk about it, how it infects my system. At the time, it did. You know.
Yeah.
So then you know, that show was not a hit. I came back to New York. I got my old job back on Saturday Night Live because I had left it briefly to go to Hollywood, and but I was back, and then I heard about this. You know, the Parliaments are doing, well, they were Parliament-Funkadelic, and they're doing a residency at the Apollo, and we are on SNL at the time. This is about 79, I think. And Harry Shearer, I know you're aware of him. He does many of the voices on The Simpsons now, and a noted satirist.
That's right.
And he was on SNL as a cast member at that time, and I was, as I said, a featured player. And he said, we got to go up to the Apollo and see the Parliament-Funkadelic.
Nice.
And of course, this excited me. He was from LA. Maybe that was why, you know, he was so hip to them. But New York was not like it is. Well, now who knows what it is with this pandemic? It's just so sad. But in the 70s, everybody remembers it was a sort of a dangerous place to be. New York. The streets were way hotter than they became.
Right.
And we're, of course, you know, I've never been to the Apollo, my first night at the Apollo, but it was insane. And the brides open, Brides of Funkenstein. And, you know, with all due respect, I can't remember, but their act was a little disjointed, you know. I can't remember if Bernie was on stage playing for them too. Maybe the band may have been behind a curtain. The bride's out front playing, and you're not sure what's going on. At least I wasn't. Well, the brides finish up, polite applause, and before you know it, and they go into knee deep with the full band now. You know, as opposed to the brides had about 3 musicians behind, and pow, and the whole place stands up and never sits down for the, you know, and they proceed to play for a good 3 hours, and it's just a knockout. It's a knockout. And my favorite guy, Felipe, comes on, and it's just, you know, he knocks us out with that scat that he does in Knee Deep. And I think this is the first time I heard Knee Deep. You know, I hadn't heard it on the radio yet or anything.
Okay.
It became a big song, the whole song on BLS at that time.
Yeah, it became a
I think,
hit.
sure, a big hit. The whole half-hour record was
Uh,
a smash. Um, but boy, I'm getting carried away. Anyway, then when Felipe comes out, they're all in army fatigues,
mm-hmm.
of course, at that time, because they're Uncle Jam's army,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes with the record. But 3 hours, 2.5 hours into the show, you hear bump, dun, 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 and it's Sadie by the Spinners, and Felipe comes out in a suit, double-breasted suit,
And it's
and the band
Cam.
plays it straight.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, 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 and he just blows it out
Yeah.
of the water with
I
his
think
version of
I think
Sadie. And
I think they hated it too. Think they hated having to play from what
well,
I gather.
I will admit that I went at least one more time. I took a bunch of people. I think I took. You got to come back and see this. And I took the guys who became my Letterman band:
Okay.
Steve, Jordan, and Will, and Hiram. I think all of us came with dates.
Okay.
And we're in the balcony the second time. And when they got to Sadie, they had funked it up. They were reggaeing it at this point, and it was easy to see. You weren't going to get that. It's just too,
Yeah, I think
nonetheless.
I recall some of the players. I won't name any names, but I recall some of the players saying, "What? I don't want to play this shit. I didn't get in this band to be playing this shit right here."
Yes, I understand. Well, they managed to,
No,
as they say, to
but
funk it up.
I've seen some footage of it though. They actually, they pulled it together. They played the
When they
shit
did
out
it
of it.
straight,
They
it
were
was like church. It was church.
Yeah,
Let's face it.
they were being hard headed kids, man. They were kids, man. A lot of them
That's a
bucks
funny
were.
story, though.
A
It's
lot of
yes, they were.
Yeah, that's why I told her this. It tickles me because that's what I know. I'm like, it's a bunch of 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids around here who came into this band to play some rock and roll. So I can see how they were probably a little perturbed by somebody saying, yeah, play this right here. It just made me laugh. That matter of fact, the person who tells me the story, they laugh telling it that, they know they were being hard headed, and it's funny now. So I love it.
That's a great story.
Matter of fact,
And I saw it. Yeah.
I had Dennis on, and Dennis was telling a good story about Felipe on stage during that time too. Man, he told a good, funny story, man. That a lot of people got a kick out of that one, man. So,
Lay it on us. We have nothing but time.
so he was telling the story. So the story came from actually Clip is the one who kind of privy me to this.
And
How
I know Clip. Yes.
Yes. So he was telling me about how like Felipe and the Pyro guys, they were the Batista brothers, the Pyro guys.
The
They
guys who
didn't
did the fire effects on stage. Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Okay.
They didn't really get along with Felipe that well. So they were kind of like having a thing where they would kind of mess with Felipe with the pyro because he had pyro that he would cue. And he said what they would do is like they would have him in rehearsal, and he would rehearse it, and they would just give him like a little, and then they
Yeah.
would get him on stage, and
Ah.
and Dennis was talking about the one time they get him on stage, and then they would like overload the thing. So they said he went to throw his cue, and the pyro go boom. And Dennis said he looked over there and he didn't even see Felipe anymore. It looked like some Looney Tunes shit, like he just kind of, like some Wile E. Coyote shit, like he just blew him up and he just disintegrated.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've gotten some good stories from that particular tour. That was a good tour, man.
So you were around. How
Oh
old were
yeah,
you then? Well, how old were you?
probably a one, if that.
And you were traveling. Well, of course they were sat down at the Apollo at that time. But did
Yeah,
you travel at 1 years old?
so my mother was also, pretty much a part of this band. My mother, so if you know the song PE Squad from the One Nation Under a Groove album, the one that George is talking about doo doo all throughout the record, it's about
Oh
11.
yes, yes,
And behind him, there's dad singing this real sweet love song.
yes.
So him and my mother wrote that song. Those lyrics that he's singing, my mother wrote those lyrics. And apparently the story to that is my dad was actually singing when he's recording those lyrics. He's singing those lyrics to my mother. He's got her in the studio in the booth with him. And he's singing this beautiful love song to her. And dad, and he sits down and they write this beautiful love song. And George wasn't at the studio. They write this beautiful love song, and everybody's in the studio watching them have this romantic moment. And now this is around the time that I was just born, mind you.
Yes, yes.
So, they having this lovely moment writing this song, and everybody's all, oh, look at them. And George comes in and hears it, says, oh man, that's good. Let me put my part on it. Then he goes in there and he proceeds to talking shit a mile a minute. Yeah, it
Literally.
proceeds to talk shit all over it, literally. And my
Yes,
mother
yes.
said, my mother said she sit back and watch that like, oh, what is he doing to my song?
Yeah.
And she also wrote, I think it was Liquid Sunshine, her and my dad. Yeah, so she was around. Like, as a matter of fact, she was around before her and my dad were a couple. So when I was born, business wasn't going to stop because they had a kid. I had to go too. So I became a
yes, yeah.
And
well, that's what they call born in a trunk, isn't it? You really were.
Yeah, born on the mothership, literally.
On the mothership, yeah.
Yeah. So my first show was Madison Square Garden at 3 years old.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And around what, 78 or something?
That was probably 81. I was
81 at the Garden.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Woo, what a life.
My first writer's credit was Pumping It Up. Me and Dad was sitting back just showing me some guitar, and I remember him showing me C to D, and had me just playing C to D, and we just had this lesson and this thing that we used to do because I had this little baby guitar, and he was just showing me C to D. Then he went away for one of his sessions, and he came back, and he was like, check this out. That's C to D. Remember C to D? It was Pumping It Up. They had done Pumping It Up. So he gave me writers on that. That was my first writer's credit, 5 years old.
Fabulous.
My first paid session was 7 years old. They were producing the Chili Peppers, the Freaky Styley record.
I remember, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, if you know that song, We Are the Brothers Cup, I'm that little kid on the song.
Beautiful.
That was my first paid session, 7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I can't. Well, how can I compete with that?
Oh,
I want to hear more. I want to interview you. This is all amazing. Yeah. Amazing to me to think of growing up that way. I was in northern Canada waxing my skis, trying to learn the snowplow to come down the hill,
Well,
that's all I knew.
I'll tell you what, in those days, I was sitting back checking you out on Dave's show. I'm telling you, I guess being as though I'm a child of some rock and roll stars, I got to live the life where I get to be up late and see things like that. And, I guess what keyed me into you guys was eventually you actually got the band on the show.
Yes.
So, and a few times they were on the show, as a matter of fact.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to recall that before they even appeared, I think we used them in a sketch. There was a big, long sketch, very conceptual, that Merrill Marco, who was our head writer, had written. And first of all, she came to me. Sometimes the writers would start working on them in advance. She came to me and she said, I'm writing a sketch, you and Dave, and we had a character, Larry Bud Melman, a strange elderly gentleman who was very much in person the way he was in character. Very out, kind of guy. And she says, I'm working on a sketch for the three of you, and I need like information about, say, a band with a lot of musicians who have different stories, complicated stories about them. Anything that you guys could be talking about where you're a fountain of information. And I say, yeah, actually, there's this group I'm into, the Parliament-Funkadelic, and they've got, they all have alternate names, and we could be talking about, one guy's Starchild, Gary Shider, and then you've got, Eddie Hazel. I start to tell her all of the lore that I've learned from reading about it, and she writes it all into the sketch. And it turns, I think she gives the lines to the old gentleman, Larry Bud Melman, so that he starts talking. He says, "Oh yeah, Starchild. You know, he plays guitar, but he also sang lead on, One Nation. You know, and this is all coming out of Larry Bud Melman's mouth. Whatever it was a very, very strange sketch. But that was like a first, I think, shot across the bow.
Okay.
I wanted, I was happy that maybe they might have heard about it, you guys, I should say. And maybe you heard, and how the first booking happened, not sure. Can't remember exactly.
Okay.
But it was George, the billing was George Clinton, I think, as a soloist. But he brought
a solo that time.
But he brought your dad, always brought your dad.
Yeah, well, even when he was recording as a solo act, it was still P-Funk.
Yes, that's right. So yeah. I know that now. Right, of course. First time I think I spoke to your dad, even before that though, I was a total freak for the Funkadelics, and Steve Jordan and I and a number of other guys were on the road now with the Blues Brothers, 1980.
Okay.
Touring. We did one tour when their movie came out. And those of us who didn't, neither Steve nor I made the movie, but we were now back for the tour, and now we're in Detroit. I don't know if we were playing Auburn Hills or what, but we start to get excited, and we learn from a road manager that we had, I think, who had done some work for you, that you guys are in town and you're at United Studio, and it's somewhere in the suburbs of Detroit. We don't know anything about it.
Southfield.
But we call over there. We get through to your dad. It's Gary Shider. And I'm saying, it's Gary Shider. And we're in town. Do you mind? We understand you guys are. He said, well, we're cutting drum tracks. I didn't even know at that time that some people do just drums first. All I know is people go in and play together. What cutting drum tracks. I don't even know if Jordan was so hip to it at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and he said his words were, yeah, you can come by for a few. He said, you can come by for a few. But our own road guys wouldn't let us go. They were afraid we'd never come back.
Yeah, that's
and maybe they were right.
That's like my father too, man. That's what everyone says about my father, man. Say he was just such a, open-hearted and open, welcomed everybody with open arms.
He did, but here I'm going to turn off this phone. Hang
on. Do you think?
But oh, I got to find out who it is.
Yeah.
Hello. Okay. There.
Yeah.
We were talking about your dad. You were saying he was so open. He absolutely invited us by. Yes.
Yeah.
But I missed him. We didn't get to go. But it was, we passed in the night. By this point, I had seen that show at the Apollo.
Okay.
So I knew exactly who he was now.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole first at least half hour, maybe 45 hour, was him. Fronting the huge band with that diaper, playing guitar, reaching down into the audience with a huge spliff and taking a power hit I've never seen the likes of, and then just playing his ass off and singing with, the most soulful of voices. So, to miss him in Detroit was, oh man, but then of course he came on with George. And humbly sat in the background and sang and played and make George sound good. Without any glory or anything. But I, was really happy to meet him that first time. And then they appeared several more times on the show together, didn't they?
Yeah. And then you had him on by himself that time too.
Well, that's fantastic. And did he sit in with us all night?
I think he did.
On guitar,
he sat in on guitar. I think I remember him wearing some red leather pants or something like that.
Oh, I remember now.
See if I can find that video. But yeah, man, and so that's that keyed me into David Letterman, and at that point you couldn't make me go to bed before I watched David Letterman, man.
Nah, that's nice.
Because the show, was just so cool, man. You guys were dope, man. It was cool.
Well, all we had to do was learn a little. Not just knee deep, and and play it, and it was almost like a, we were able to get a seal of approval from a lot of people, I think, just from knowing that song and playing it on national TV.
Yeah.
Thrilled to do it. And what a song, what a record, what a chord sequence,
I know,
and
right?
what improvs from your dad and Felipe. Backgrounds, I could go on and on.
Yeah, Junior
Incredible.
Morrison
But talking
arrangement.
about your dad being open, I think when he sat in, he probably was in town for a show. And it was either that time or the next time that I went down, and they were playing down maybe the Bowery Ballroom or something. And your father just said to me, "Come on whenever you want, whenever you know it, whenever you know the song, come on and play it. You want to go off, go off."
Yeah.
That was what he did for me that night, and that was, like being bar mitzvah
So
for
awesome.
me. He bar mitzvahed me that night.
So awesome.
And then I felt like I was a Funkadeer. I think if Starchild gives you that kind of carte blanche, you're a Funkadeer.
That's exactly what it was. So at his memorial service, every band member, past and present, that spoke, that's pretty much everyone's story. It's like Gary is the one who hired me into this band. You know what I'm saying? It's like we knew that George was the one, but it was like we had to go through Gary, and Gary was the one who said yay or nay. But like I said, but he wasn't ever looking to say nay. Was the point. He was the one who kind of initiated you and took you under the wing. I call him like the extension of George. The accessible extension.
He sure was, and George looked to him for musical knowledge too, and knowledge. I mean, your dad was obviously a choir director.
Yeah.
In his day.
Yeah. Well, all of that he picked up in the P.
Oh, really? I thought maybe he brought it in from the church.
Well, he was. So my father, he was a church musician. My grandfather raised him and my uncle Tommy, and I think a couple of their cousins. They had a band in Plainfield. They called it Plainfield Gospel Tones. So my dad, when he was about 9, he was playing guitar and lead singer. And they would back up like when Shirley Caesar would come to town, they would back her up. The Blind Boys of Alabama, and people like that. The Mighty Clouds of Joy. When he was a kid, he was playing behind these acts, so he was definitely raised as a church musician.
Playing guitar then?
Yeah, playing guitar and singing.
Yeah. Well, I hear you. You've named all those wonderful gospel innovators that even I know and I'm familiar with, so of course, that seeps into you as a kid.
He was in P-Funk by the time he was 16, though. He was already moved and living in Toronto by then. So
yes. Now we spoke on the phone the other day, and I realized I guess I don't think I saw him with the Parliament-Funkadelic. No, what were they? They were the Parliaments and the Funkadelics.
Okay.
At that time. But I went on the internet and read that around that time he was up there with his own band called the
United Soul from Plainfield.
Yes, United Soul, and I'm from Plainfield.
Yeah.
And I had heard, it came back to me. I had heard of United Soul, but I don't, I never got to see them. And then I guess I was already on my way to New York by the time he got there, and then hooked up with George up there.
So when
had his hair cut by him in Plainfield.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The barbershop. That's what he used to hang around the barbershop, and eventually George took notice to United Soul, and he brought them all. They all went to Toronto, and they recorded I think Rat Kissed the Cat is one that they did. It's called United Soul. I think it's called Funkadelic featuring United Soul. Then there's this song "I Miss My Baby" that ended up becoming a bonus track on the re-release of Maggot Brain. That one is billed Funkadelic featuring United Soul. And then you have another version, a fast version of "Baby I Owe You Something Good." That one is titled Funkadelic featuring US. So those songs he recorded with United Soul. But but George, being the way that I see that things played out with that band, I think he probably had just the eye on, like just my dad, and Cordell Mawson was also in that band, so he took them from the band and eventually brought them into Funkadelic, which I think was his plan all along. Truth be told, knowing George.
Sure, but here he was doing it in Toronto, which just blows my mind.
Yeah.
I saw him briefly though, those couple of times, but not your dad.
Yes, because so in those earlier years, I think he was kind of just, he was probably up there, but he wasn't in the band yet. I'm
Yeah,
knowing how George does. They're sitting on
sure.
the sidelines and sitting in the wings and waiting. So, but he officially joined in '71 and got his first writer's credit, and then he was officially like in the band '72. He was
Hey,
officially.
yeah, amazing. And then they all came back.
Yeah,
Well,
they all came
I
back.
want to before you wrap me up, which because I could go on all day,
Oh
but
yeah, I know. I wanted to
the
get to the
most
record.
well, my record that they helped me with and played on. Well, that's what I want to do too because it was life changing for me.
Yeah.
I had a little record deal in 1989, and I did I did different cuts in different locations. That was kind of my idea
Okay.
to pay tribute to, Miami, where I got KC, from KC and the Sunshine Band, did a song
Okay.
with him, stuff like that. And I did a surf song with Brian Wilson out on the West Coast,
That's the
and
concept,
then
coast to coast.
exactly, and that was
Okay.
the name of the record.
Okay.
And it was KC who wrote the song with
Okay.
me, Coast to Coast, the title song. And then
Okay.
I figured, I'm very, uh, uh, I feel that I have so much respect for and have become dear friends with Valerie, the great Valerie Simpson
Oh,
of
okay.
Ashford and the Simpson,
Okay.
who wrote so many of the great Motown hits,
Yeah.
like Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go any farther than that.
We were just at the
And
Grammy celebration with her last year. Her and George got that
yes, yes,
lifetime Grammy.
yes, both of them deserve it.
Yes.
Anyway, I thought, I'll ask her to sing lead on a song, and I always had a song that she wrote for Martha and the Vandellas. It wasn't a hit that I loved called "Tear It On Down." And
Okay.
I said, and if I could get George Clinton and to arrange and produce the background vocals on this, that would be a dream come true. And he said yes.
Okay.
And of course, he brought Gary Shider and a number of people, and he said, "Well, you got to come to Detroit,
Uh-huh.
and we'll work at United Sound with Vitti,
Uh-huh.
the
Jim Vitti.
engineer,
Yeah. R.I.P.
and
Jim Vitti.
we need 2 nights in the studio to do it." And I'm saying, "Wow, this is whatever he says, 2 nights." So this is so exciting. And I had a producer. I don't think he's with us anymore, and his name was Larry Smith, early hip hop
Okay.
producer in New York,
Okay.
who came to Detroit with me, and we were in George's hands. So it's a 2-night thing, First night they had a gig. They had a gig the night before, and that means it went into the early morning. Of
Uh-huh.
course, God knows
Oh,
how late
5
they played.
hours.
Yeah. So when they showed up in the studio, your dad, no voice at all. But he says, I'll direct. Cool, and he had a number of young guys. That's where I met Clip.
Uh-huh.
And another young guy whose name escapes me now, but I bet you know him. Of course, I mean,
Lige,
I don't know.
maybe.
Yeah, Lige Curry.
Okay.
Exactly. Met those 2 guys. They sang on it. A woman named
Patty Walker.
Lewis.
Oh,
Was
Pat
she
Lewis.
once Patty Lewis? Yeah, Pat
Pat
Lewis,
Lewis. Oh, Hot
who had
Butter
been in the
Soul.
original. He had been in the original and on Dante's Motown background
Uh-huh.
vocal group.
Uh-huh.
She was there.
Uh-huh.
She knew Valerie from the old day. Valerie didn't come, but she put her live vocal on later. And George just went to work. Gary, no voice yet, but the way he seemed to work was, and I got a little vibe of it from what you said earlier. Guys like Lige would come up with lines, Hey, George, how about this?
Mm-hmm.
Sing a hip funkadelic style line, all in the kind of style that we've known growing to love. And George, no, George will either pass or dig it and say yes, you know. And then they start to work it, and it's your dad in front of them conducting like a gospel choir, pulling it out.
You sing
and
this.
George,
you sing that.
Yeah.
And
then once he had the notes going, she would still couldn't sing. Then George would come in and he explained to me, he says, what I do is I take a sad melody like he wrote, but I get it sung with a smile. So it sounds like fun, yet it's sad. And I'm starting to learn, wow, some of his secrets. And so then he would sort of direct it from an emotional side with your dad, making sure the notes and the vibe is perfect, and then, and the length of the note. And I saw these two guys working together. And then sure enough, as the evening went on, and now it's 2, your dad vocal cords start to loosen up. And then he starts adding his voice to the thing, and it was. And then the next night when he came in, he was fresh from the get-go, and it was $1 million music lesson for me. That's all I know, and it's right on that record, man, which is awfully soulful, with Valerie Simpson singing lead and Mia backing her up on organ in the background. And so, I mean, what an experience that I owe to your dad.
That's
who could he didn't even he was there, and it was beautiful.
He's gonna always be on, even when he ain't on. He gonna always be on when it's time to go.
He was on.
Yeah,
exactly. He had no chords, but then he did. They loosened up, and he didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
So that is, I hope you will.
That was your Gary Shider experience.
Well, it sure was, and it's right on that record.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of great experiences with him because, during the times that he would come on Letterman, these extra times that I got to be live with him, one time upstate New York, I can't remember where. Your mother always there, of course. And the two of them were very lovely friends to me, and your mother still is.
Yeah, she says hi too, man.
Give her my love.
I sure will.
So this is how cool. And now you are carrying on for your dad.
Yeah, man, I got to do what I got to do to keep it going on, man. Like I said, they raised me out here, man. I was inspired by looking at, what you saw back in 79, 80. I was a little kid, but I was keyed into the fact of, if anything, I was always keyed into the fact that my dad was like a superhero. I was always keyed into that, and I was always inspired.
He was, yes. Yeah. Well, and of course, and literally, as they made up cartoon superhero characters.
Yeah.
It was all so cool. And I think the last time I saw your dad, I bet you were there too, was in New Orleans.
Okay. I probably wasn't there.
Well, he was playing Jazz Fest.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother and dad were there.
Okay.
He was still traveling with the band, but sick.
Okay.
Wasn't performing.
Yeah, I wasn't.
He wasn't performing.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I was in town because I was playing in a club with the drummer from the Meters.
Okay.
Zig Modelast.
Yeah, Ziggy.
And George,
Zigaboo.
Zigaboo. And he said, and George was going to combine with a bunch of people, which he did, and do a guest set in this little club. And that's when I saw Gary, God bless him, and rest in peace for the last time.
Yeah.
And I had a nice interaction with him and your mom then. And we missed this guy who, to me, was my favorite singer ever. He was the greatest vocalist ever, for my money.
Oh, man. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
So you have a big shoes to fill. But but the main question, I think everybody who hasn't seen you yet with leading this, like I haven't, do you wear the diaper? That's the main thing I want to know.
Only on Halloween.
Okay, all right, then that's the answer I was hoping to get.
George shot videos for his last 2 singles that he put out within the last 5 years, and I put on a diaper for that too, because they kept telling me, it was like, well, they're gonna put a diaper on somebody, so you might as well.
Yes. Right.
So it's like, yeah, I got to do it for so 2 videos for George, and when we play Halloween gigs, I'll do it because I know people gets a kick out of it, but I'm
I
not
love
gonna
it.
go that far. I just try to keep it going, keep I try to keep the legacy of the music going on, you know what I mean, and the actual Shider sound, that's what I'm trying to key in on and try to keep his legacy going on, because the P-Funk
Well,
legacy will never die. But I really want people to really understand how special Gary Shider was.
it's on wax,
Yeah,
and now it's digital, and Gary will be with us forever.
yeah.
God bless him. We can love him and appreciate him forever,
Well, I
and we will.
appreciate getting testimonials from you guys like this, man. It all helps. I appreciate you being on the show with me today, Mr. Shaffer.
Love that you have a show, and I'm glad I got to do it, and I hope to get to do it again.
All right, man. Well, tell your
Beautiful.
friends, man. Tell your friends, and if any of them want to be on, all they got to do is hit me up. I got an open spot for them.
I sure will.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you, Starchildjr.
Thank you.
Beautiful to be with you.
Thank you very much. You come back anytime, man. We kick the fat some more.
Looking forward to it. Love to your mom and to everybody else that I know.
Okay, man. You keep your head low, man. Keep healthy and safe.
Same to you.
One love.
Bye-bye.